I welcome you all to this biology exam questions, and I want to teach you these two questions. These are important questions that you need to understand before you enter into an exam. These are very important questions, and I just want us to discuss through these two good questions together. So how then do we answer questions of this nature? What you are supposed to know, or what you need to understand, is something very simple. The first question is telling us to say, define the term respiration. So they want us to explain the term what? Respiration. You need to understand that respiration is a what? Is a biological process. So I'm going to say that this is a biological process through which, so I'll say through which, hope we are moving together, and if possible you must be writing down everything that I'm writing down, through which living organisms, so through which living organisms convert, so they convert nutrients into energy. This is what you are supposed to understand. So this is one of the definitions. We've got a lot of definitions that you need to understand. I guess you are also having another different definition, but in this particular lesson we are going to go with this one. You just need to understand that respiration is a biological process. So it is a biological process. This is a biological process through which living organisms convert nutrients into energy. You need to understand that it is essential for maintaining life, and this gets to occur in two forms, which is taking us to two types of respiration. So even as I'm explaining this, I'm also teaching you, I'm not really answering this particular question, but I'm teaching you these things. So on the types of respiration, you need to understand that there is what we call aerobic respiration. So aerobic what? Respiration. You need to understand aerobic respiration. What is aerobic respiration? So aerobic respiration, this is a process that requires energy and is used by many organisms. So this process by which living organisms convert nutrients into energy, aerobic respiration gets to require what? There is energy, oxygen that is being required. So it requires what? It requires energy. You discover that it involves the breakdown of glucose to produce energy, carbon dioxide and water. So the equation that gets to summarize this aerobic respiration, you discover that we get to have glucose. So we break down glucose plus oxygen. So glucose plus oxygen, we get to have carbon dioxide plus what? So I will say carbon dioxide plus carbon dioxide. When we break down this, we get to form there is water involved plus energy. So this is what you need to understand like this. This is an equation for what? Aerobic respiration. When we go to anaerobic, so when we go to anaerobic respiration, so there is what we call anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration. There is also anaerobic respiration that you are supposed to understand. When we move to anaerobic respiration, this is just a process that occurs in the absence of oxygen. So this gets to occur in the absence, so it gets to occur in the what? The absence of oxygen. In the absence of oxygen. In the absence of oxygen. This is what you need to understand. So this process that gets to occur in the absence of oxygen, you now discover that we've got this type that gets to result into less energy production compared to aerobic respiration. and this can lead to the formation of byproducts like lactic acid. We've got ethanol. This is what you are supposed to understand. So this is what you need to know under the first question that was just telling us to say, explain the term respiration. So you just explain some of these things, you expand them. So in summary, respiration is vital for energy production, enabling organisms to perform functions necessary for survival, growth, and reproduction. You just conclude like that. So you are explaining the process or the term respiration and what is involved, even the types of what respiration. This is what we are doing. So this is what you need to understand. We are just revising through together these things. We are just helping each other remember some of these things, even as we get to prepare for our exams. So I'm just giving you some hints. I'm not giving you everything, like you're supposed to write them like this, but these are essay questions. So even as you write them, you write those nice paragraphs, which I know you are able to do that. We go to this particular question that is here. Distinguish gaseous exchange in fish and insects. This is another question that we are given. We want to distinguish gaseous exchange in fish and in insects. You discover that gaseous exchange in fish and insects involve different structures and mechanisms due to their distinct respiratory systems. These have got different respiratory systems, and we need to understand those respiratory systems that are there. The first thing that I'm going to start with is fish. So I'll start with what? I'll start with fish. In an exam, you are supposed to write these in an essay form, as if you are writing a paragraph, an essay form. So you begin to write these things in an essay form, and that's how you are supposed to write them. I'm just giving you these things so that you expand them on your own. I guess you know what I mean. You are not supposed to write them the way I'm writing fish, then inside like this. No. So when we go to fish, what you are supposed to understand, the first thing that you need to get, we are talking about what? Respiratory. So respiratory what? Structures. Let's go to respiratory structures in a fish. You discover that fish will get to use what we call what? We use what we call gills. So this is what you need to understand. So it uses gills for respiration. Gills are specialized organs located on the, you can find these on the side of the fish's head, consisting of the thin filament rich in blood vessels. So you discover that under respiratory structure for fish are what? Gills. This is what you need to understand. You also discover that this same fish gets to have what we call water flows over the gills in one direction, while blood flows in the opposite direction. So another point that you consider in an exam is that in this particular part, when you go to mechanism now, you discover that water flows over the gills. Over the what? Over the gills. Water flows over the gills in one direction. In what? In one direction. This is what you need to understand. In one direction. Wow, blood flows. Wow, blood what? Wow, blood flows. So wow, blood flows in the opposite direction. In the what? In the opposite direction. So it flows in the opposite direction. Blood flows in the opposite direction. You also need to understand that fish extract oxygen from water, which has a lower oxygen concentration compared to air. So these 3 points are very cardinal even in an exam. So the last one is that fish will get to extract. So fish gets to extract oxygen from where? from water. So it extracts oxygen from where? From water. And I've told you that this same oxygen that is being extracted from water has a lower oxygen concentration. So it has a what? It has a lower oxygen concentration. So lower what? Lower oxygen concentration. Lower oxygen concentration. This is what you need to understand. So finish concentration like this. These are simple things that you are supposed to know. You need to understand all these things even as you get to prepare for your exams. Let us now go to an insect. So we go to an insect. These are simple things. I know you are able to answer. So you explain these things using a paragraph. In an exam, you're supposed to use a paragraph even as you are explaining these things. So under fish, like we've stated here, 3 things that we've mentioned. 1, we get to talk of what? We get to talk of respiratory structures. The respiratory structure in an insect, you discover that insects get to use a network of what? Tracheas. So this is what you need to understand. So it uses the network of trachea like this. Guess this is how the spelling is, if I'm not mistaken. So they get to use these ones are what we call tiny tubes. So these are what? These are tiny tubes. This is what you are supposed to understand. That's a network they get to use. So that delivers, you discover that it is going to deliver oxygen directly to tissues. The trachea, this same tiny tube, it is now going to do what? To open to the outside through a small opening called the spiracles. This is what you are supposed to know and understand. So the structures they get to use are the what? Tracheas, which are the tiny tubes. When we go to mechanisms, here we said that water flows over the gills. This is the fish. But insects, we discover that we get to talk of now diffusion. Diffusion is involved here. There is now diffusion that gets to be what? Involved. You discover that oxygen enters the body through what? Spiracles and diffuses directly into cells. Carbon dioxide then travels in the opposite direction. So you will discover that insects can regulate gas exchange by opening and closing their spiracles to maximize water loss. This is what you need to understand. So just explain the process of what? Diffusion, like the way I've just explained to you. This is what you need to understand. And the medium that gets to be used is that insects extract oxygen from air, which is more abundant in oxygen than water. So this one, in insects, you discover that insects get to extract, so these ones get to extract, so I would say they extract oxygen from where? From air, which is more abundant. So this one is more abundant. Is what? This one is more abundant. So I would say more abundant than in what? Than in water. These are certain things that you need to understand. So we just look at 3 things here: respiratory structures, mechanism, and the medium. These are the things that I've just explained to you. In an exam, you are just supposed to write these things in an essay form. So you're supposed to write them in an essay form. You explain them using those good paragraphs. On the diffusion, there maybe someone did not get me clearly. There is no space here. So I was explaining that this part called diffusion, you explain what diffusion is in terms of this gaseous exchange. You discover that oxygen enters the body. Oxygen is going to enter the body through what we get to call spiracles. So it is going to enter the body through those spiracles, and it is going to diffuse directly into the cells. So after that, it is then going to do what? It is going to diffuse. It is going to diffuse directly. So it is going to diffuse directly into what? Into cells. So it is going to diffuse directly into cells. Carbon dioxide will then travel in the what? In the opposite direction. So we are saying that insects can regulate gas exchange by opening and closing their spiracles to maximize water loss. This is what I'm just explaining here, and this is what you need to understand. These are simple things. I guess you've learned one or two things. In an exam, you explain these using, these are essay questions. So you put down a good essay. If I was you, I can even try to write an essay. I see if I can balance up these things, if I can connect these points that are here. Those of you that are interested in starting lessons with me, this is the number to text. You text me on WhatsApp on this particular number. So you can WhatsApp me now. I add you to the group. You are a GCE candidate internal. Let me prepare you for your exams. This is the only time you have for you to prepare for exams. So this is my WhatsApp number. Those of you under my online lessons, those of you that get to follow me, let's try to connect these points. We write a paragraph, especially those of you under my online lessons. You are supposed to submit this. This is not part of our lessons, but I just want to make sure that you are participating in every activity that I get to do. So I want you to connect these points, then submit them in my inbox. I guess we know where we get to submit from. Submit this. I'm going to mark and I'm going to check through, because I want you people to, I want to be moving with you. I don't want to leave any person behind. So submit this question. Don't submit like this essay format. Thank you.